Today we are going to be doing our first edition of our 2025 NFL Draft mock drafts. I thought now would be, a good time to do our first one as the trade deadline just happened. We're just over halfway through the season. The draft order is shaping up. Obviously, it can still change a little bit, but it's getting a little bit closer to what it might eventually look like. Even though I think there's like 9 teams with 2 wins, but either way, I thought it would be a good time to do our first mock draft for this 2025 NFL draft. And before we begin this video, make sure you subscribe. It helps a lot because if you don't want to miss more content, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And without further ado, let's get into this video. So the first pick right now is the Patriots, and they obviously don't need a quarterback. They have their guy, their franchise QB at the moment in Drake May, who's looked great to start his career. So they're obviously not going to go quarterback. And outside of quarterback, they really have needs everywhere. Like, they don't really have any position that's locked up. Because, they have Christian Gonzalez, but he's a corner, and you can always take more corners. So they don't really have a position that's locked up outside of Drake May. So they probably just go best player available, and that best player is Travis Hunter. He can play both sides of the ball, whether he's going to, how much he's going to play on each side. He can do it all. Best player available, Travis Hunter. At 2, the Jags are in desperate need of some O-line help, and I think they go tackle here. I think they go Kelvin Banks Jr., tackle out of Texas. It's between him or Will Campbell, who you think is the best tackle in the draft. I think they go Kelvin Banks out of Texas. I think he's really picked up steam as the number 1 tackle. So I think they go with him at 2. Now, the Saints at 3 is interesting because it says their needs are guard and D-line, but I honestly think they could go quarterback here. Because when looking at the quarterbacks, there are only 3 that you can make an argument that go in the first round. That's Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, and Jalen Milroe. And I think the Saints end up going quarterback here because Spencer Rattler hasn't worked out. I mean, he was picked very late. Jake Haener hasn't done anything. Derek Carr's just a bridge guy. So I think they go quarterback, and I think they go obviously in their mind, the quarterback 1 in the draft, but we don't know that. So I think right now I'll just take the consensus top quarterback, which I think is Shedeur Sanders. So I have him going 3rd overall to the Saints. Panthers at 4. Now, if they want Shedeur Sanders, he is off the board, and they still could go Cam Ward, but I don't think they go quarterback. They didn't trade Bryce at the deadline. They started him these last 2 weeks. He's played pretty good. If he starts the rest of the season and continues to play about what he's played these last 2 weeks, I don't see why they go quarterback. And if that is the case, if they decide not to take quarterback, I think they go best available defensive player because their defense is awful. And their draft class most recently has really played well on the offensive side. So I think they go defense. And I think they go best defensive player available in Mason Graham, the D lineman from Michigan, pairing him and Derek Brown to create probably one of the best interior D-line duos in all of football. So I think they could go edge, like Abdul Carter or even Will Johnson, but I think they go Mason Graham. Now the Browns are at 5, and they could also use a quarterback because Deshaun Watson, let's just say that hasn't worked out. And Dorian Thompson-Robinson, or DTR, he's shown some flashes, but I think they go quarterback here. And Shedeur's off the board, so it's either Milroe or Cam Ward. I think the next best quarterback is Cam Ward, so I think that's who the Browns go at 5. The Raiders at 6, they could also use a quarterback here. But do they want to go Jalen Milroe is the question. Now, they do have a lot of needs outside of quarterback. I feel like the Browns are a little bit more set than the Raiders are in terms of the surrounding pieces. So I don't think they go QB here, especially because it seems like Shedeur Sanders wants to be a Raider. So I think if he's on the board, they definitely go with him. And if not, especially if Cam Ward also isn't on the board, I think they just go best player available, and which is probably either McMillan or Will Johnson. And I think they go Will Johnson at 6, corner, out of Michigan, as they do need serious help in that secondary. Giants at 7. They need O-line help. They could go quarterback here too with Daniel Jones, but I just think because of the contract that they're just not going to go quarterback here. especially they don't like Jalen Milroe. And I think they bolster up their O-line because it is not good. Their defense is actually pretty solid, at least their front seven. Their secondary has some young pieces. But I think offensively is where they need help, especially that O-line. So I think they go the next best tackle, Will Campbell out of LSU. It's either him or Kelvin Banks. Those are the two tackles. And then there's a tiny bit drop off, just a little bit. So I think they get Will Campbell before the tackles start, before he goes, I guess. And then next pick is the Dolphins, another team that could use a tackle, could use interior or offensive line in general. They also could go corner here. They could go with a Benjamin Morrison. They could go with a Siobhan Revel, Denzel Burke. But honestly, I think they still believe in Tua. I think they still want to help build around Tua. And their defense, outside of the last 2 weeks, has played pretty good. I honestly think they go tackle here. I know it might be a little bit of a reach taking Cameron Williams here at 8, but I think the Dolphins go tackle and get some protection for Tua. Try and keep him upright and try and build around him as their quarterback. Now the Titans at 9. Another team that could use a quarterback, but I think they're going to go with Will Levis for one more season because I don't think they're not benching him. I think he's just hurt. I think he's actually might play this next week. So I think they are going to stick with Will Levis. Their defense has played pretty good this year. So I think they try and help out Will Levis's supporting cast and get probably the best player available in Tetaroya McMillan. Great receiver for Arizona. Probably the best true receiver because Travis Hunter is like the hybrid receiver corner. He might not even play a ton of receiver. So I think the best true receiver is McMillan. I think the Titans go with him to give Will Levis a weapon, and if they move on from Will Levis, either this year or next year, that next quarterback can have a great weapon like McMillan alongside Calvin Ridley and Tony Pollard. Now, the Jets is an interesting pick here at 10 because they could go defense. They could get a corner like Benjamin Morrison. They could go edge like Scorton, Pierce, Overton, or they could get Kenneth Grant. However, I'm actually going to have them go with Jalen Milroe, quarterback out of Alabama, be the Aaron Rodgers like backup plan once he retires, do what the Packers did with Jordan Love. It's worked out, and I honestly think the Jets go Milroe at 10. Maybe they trade back and take Milroe. We're just not doing trades in this mock. But honestly, I think they go QB, especially if Milroe falls to 10. I think they get that backup for Rodgers once he retires. Because they still have a lot of decent young pieces like Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. So, like, just because once Aaron Rodgers, like, retires potentially in, like, 2 to 3 years, it doesn't mean they're all of a sudden just completely out of contention. If they have a young quarterback that can step in, they can still compete, and I think Milroe could potentially be that for them. Cowboys at 11. This seems like a very consensus pick right now with the Cowboys because their defense has been struggling, but they are missing Micah, and I think they've had a banged up secondary. And the only issue really offensively, outside of maybe Dak being a little inconsistent and them lacking receivers outside of CeeDee Lamb, is their run game. Their run game has been horrible, and it seems like Ashton Jeanty to Dallas, if they have pick 11, is almost a guarantee. Ashton Jeanty, obviously Heisman candidate, best running back in college football, and I see him going to Dallas everywhere. So I could easily see that happening if Dallas is here at 11. Colts are now on the clock at 12. Says they need safety. The best player available is a safety, Malachi Starks out of Georgia. When in doubt, go Georgia defensive players. I'm going to go Colts taking Malachi Starks, safety out of Georgia. Bengals are up at 13. It says they need receiver, but I think they're going to be able to retain T. Higgins, and I don't think they'll need anything else offensively. Their offense is one of the best in the league on most days. It's their defense that needs help, especially that front seven. So I'm going to have them take Kenneth Grant, D lineman out of Michigan, the second Michigan D lineman to go in the first half of the first round. Seahawks at 14. They could use defense because I still believe in Geno Smith, If Jalen Miller was available, I could see them take him, but I don't think they take a guy like Ewers or Beck or Nussmeier um, to be that future plan for Geno. I think they go defense here, and I think they go with the best defensive player available, which I think is Abdul Carter. Would be a pretty good steal, honestly, if the Seahawks could get Abdul Carter at 14. I think they just go with him. And speaking of defense, the Rams need help in that secondary, so I think they bolster that up with Notre Dame's corner, Benjamin Morris. I don't know too much about him. Again, I didn't mention this before, but I don't know a ton about these players, but halfway through the season, I want to do a mock draft. So I think the Rams go with the best corner available, which is Benjamin Morrison out of Notre Dame. Bucks pick at 16. Offensively, they're pretty set, to be honest. Their issues have been on defense. They still have guys like Vita Vea on that at the D tackle position. Their secondary is still, you obviously got Winfield back there. I think they could use edge, as it says here. Their second biggest need is edge. I think they go the next best edge available in Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M. The Bears are now, or not the Bears, the Niners are up at 17. The Niners is an interesting pick here because they don't need a lot because they're trying to contend, right? And they're going to run out of room eventually, like money, because they got a lot of guys they have to pay. But one thing they do need is O-line, because we don't know how much Trent Williams has left. And just overall, their O-line isn't the greatest, at least in terms of like young assets. And looking at the remaining players, interior O-line, there's no one even worth taking in the first round, it seems. You got some Alabama linemen like Booker and Roberts, Brailsford, but it doesn't seem like, at least at the top of the first, at least like midway through the first, like the Niners are at, there seems like an interior lineman worth taking. But when you do look at tackles, there is Ariante Ursary and Josh Simmons, who seem like they could be some tackles that could go in the first. And I actually think the Niners go with Ursary out of Minnesota to help. Maybe he can play alongside Trent Williams. He can be the future replacement for Trent Williams. So I think they go tackle there as at this point, the O-line depth in this class is sort of falls off a little bit. So I think they get a good first round tackle while they can. Bears are now up at 18. They could use O-line themselves, but again, there's no interior lineman worth taking. Tackles, I think, is the Bears, I guess, strong suit on their offensive line. It's not great, but they definitely have, I think, better tackles than they do interior. You could go Josh Simmons, but I don't know if you want to take him at 18. So I think if they're not going O-line, they go D-line. So I think they go edge here, as there's still a ton of good edge rushers like Overton, Michael Williams. But I think they go James Pierce out of Tennessee, take a chance on maybe the athletic upside that James Pierce has. I think they go with him at 18 to try and pair alongside Montez Sweat. Broncos at 19. Their defense obviously doesn't need a ton of help. Their defense is very good. Bo Nix has impressed a lot, especially for me. So I think they go to support Bo Nix. I think they try to give him some more weapons. And what better than Luther Burden at 19? That's great value. Best receiver left on the board. So I think that's an easy pick for them. And they give Bo Nix that true weapon that he can grow with. Because he has Cortland Sutton, but he's a little bit on the older side. And who knows about guys like Troy Franklin. But Luther Burden gives them that true young receiver that could potentially be Will Levis's number one in like 5 years. Maybe probably even quicker than that. Cardinals at 20. They need help on defense. Says that they need linebacker. Best linebacker available is Danny Stutzman out of Oklahoma. I'll have them go with him. Don't know too much about him. But they need linebacker. Best linebacker available. Danny Stutzman to the Cardinals at 20. Chargers at 21. Honestly, they could go receiver here. You like what Ladd McConkey's given you. Quentin Johnston's had a much, much better season. That O-line's pretty set, especially on the in the tackles with Slater and Alt. You obviously have Justin Herbert. The run game with Dobbins and Edwards seems to work. I think they go defense here, even though their defense has been great this year. But why not get one of the better edge rushers in when you could go Overton or Michael Williams. I'm gonna have them go Michael Williams out of Georgia. It was him or Overton, but we'll go with Michael Williams to the Chargers at 21. And speaking of LT Overton, I have the Falcons going with him at 22. Offensively, the Falcons are pretty set for the future because they even got Michael Penix. Their defense is definitely their weakness. I know they traded for Judon, but he's older. They have an older D line. They don't have any like super young guys to build around. I think Overton can be that for them. So I have them going with him at 22, as that's kind of the last edge rusher in that specific tier. Because after that, it's Jack Sawyer, who's a good player, obviously, and Donovan Ezeraku. But they're kind of in that like latter half of the first round, maybe early second round. So I think they get the last edge rusher that's like a clear first round pick in Overton. Packers at 23. They don't need really much help in the secondary. I think they need to bolster up that O-line. And I think they go with the last first round talent O-line available, borderline first round talent, Josh Simmons out of Ohio State at 23. Ravens at 24. Again, another team that could use some O-line help, but honestly, there's not really many left to take in the first round. So I think they bolster up that secondary, pair a guy alongside Nate Wiggins, who's had a pretty solid rookie year. And I think they go the next best corner in Siobhan Revel out of ECU. He is coming off of that injury, so we'll see how that affects his draft stock. But I still think he's a good player, so I think the Ravens take him at 24. Texans at 25. They do need help on that interior line, but again, I don't think they take a Tyler Booker or a Jaden Roberts at 25. That might be a second round guy they look at. So I think they focus on defense, and I think they go the best interior D lineman, Deion Walker, out of Kentucky. Eagles at 26, another team that could use edge. Good, is a great edge class. I think they go the next best edge rusher in Jack Sawyer out of Ohio State. Steelers at 27. I don't think they go defense. They got a very good defense. They even got young guys like Peyton Wilson at linebacker, says they need. I think they go offense here because, yes, you've liked what you've seen from Calvin Austin, but the only bona fide guy you have right now is George Pickens. Because Mike Williams, I don't think, is that. So I think they go receiver here. It's whether they want Isaiah Bond or Emeka Egbuka. I trust Ohio State receivers, though they seem to work out pretty well. So I'm going to go Emeka Egbuka. I think that's how you say it, out of Ohio State. Next pick is the Vikings at 28, a team that could use a team that could use secondary help, and I think they get just that. I think they go corner here and go actually would be the third straight Ohio State player, sort of get that last maybe first round talent corner, Denzel Burke out of Ohio State. Now the Commanders at 29, a team that could use a tackle. There's not really one necessarily you want to go after. They could go edge, could go Donovan Ezeraku. But honestly, I think they go defense here. That definitely is their weakness, even though it's not a bad defense at all. So I think they just go best defensive player available, which is Kevin Winston Jr. out of Penn State. Just best defensive player, to be honest. Bills at 30, they could use linebacker. And I think they do go with Jahad Campbell, best linebacker left out of Alabama. Lions at 31. I know they have Aiden Hutchinson. He obviously should be back next season. but they don't really have that guy outside of Aiden Hutchinson. I know they traded for Zadarius Smith, but he might just be a one-year rental. They need some youth on that edge, and I think they go Donovan Ezerauku out of Boston College. Now, the last pick in the first round, Chiefs at 32. It says they need running back. I doubt they go Quinshon Judkins. I don't think they're going to go tackle. I don't think they're going to go Wyatt Millum. It also says they need tight end as Kelsey's getting up there. And I actually wouldn't mind them taking a tight end here, because it seems like they use more than one tight end a decent amount. And also it gives you a future plan when Kelsey's done, because it seems like he might be done in the next 2 to 3 years. So I'm actually going to have them go Colston Loveland, tight end out of Michigan. That will, and that just like that, that will conclude my first 2025 NFL mock draft, mid-season mock draft, whatever you want to call it. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section about this mock draft. Let me know if you like what I picked for your favorite team. And if you enjoy the video, make sure you leave a like and also hit the subscribe button so you don't miss more content over here at Couch Casual. And I will see you guys next time. Peace.